Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Dog Who Came to Christmas and Other True Stories of the Gifts Dogs Bring Us. Edited by Callie Smith Grant. Narrated by Jean Ann Douglas. Introduction. Christmas and dogs. I love both, so what a pleasure for me to collect stories about that wonderful combination. As I write this, there's a whole lot of stress going on in our world. With so many troubles afoot, I will admit I tend to get extra anxious. To cope, I'm learning new skills to distract myself so that I'm not constantly mired in disturbing news. One of the new tools, new to me anyway, I use to distract myself is my local newspaper's online comics page. I check the funnies every morning. This may not be the deepest way to deal with things, but I find starting my day with the smile this act provides is helpful and most likely healthy. I begin with the family circus, where recently little Billy said, "The softest, warmest pillow in the whole world are dogs." Isn't that the truth? What a gift dogs are. In the same week, I happened upon a new research report that concluded children between the ages of 2 and 5 are less likely to have social interaction issues if they are raised with a dog. How less likely? A whopping 40%. Now, there's a reason to put a puppy under the Christmas tree. Of course, we don't need to be children to appreciate dogs, and let's remember that we should always be cautious with surprise pets for presents. In this book, you'll meet people of all ages who had the privilege of interacting in beautiful, memorable ways with a dog or puppy, new or known, at Christmas time. You'll meet some young families with not much money, but they receive a gift, a lively, furry new family member who offers unconditional love to all. You'll meet one mom who hides a surprise Christmas puppy in a stable, reminding her afresh of the earthiness of the place of the Christ child's birth. One writer's extreme shyness about meeting her potential new in-laws at Christmas is eased by the actions of an extraordinary dog who pulls the whole new family together. Some dogs are true friends to their humans for the dog's entire life. Some dogs are there only for a season, maybe only for the Christmas season. They all offer their unique gifts of love and support, of companionship, even of life to their loved ones, or sometimes to strangers, or even more remarkably, sometimes to other animals. And yes, a couple of stories really do feature boxes with dogs in them under the tree on Christmas morning. But we also learn there's more than one way to get a dog for Christmas. You'll see. A gentle warning. There is occasional heartbreak scattered throughout these stories. But let me assure you, no hearts were broken permanently in the writing of this book. Why? Because of dogs. They can be the great healers of hearts. Christmas Thoughts seemed to remind some of the contributors of beloved dogs loved and lost. But so many of them tell how they went on to love another wonderful dog. As contributor Andy Lehman's father tells her, "The greatest tribute you can pay an animal you loved and lost is to love another." Some stories feature new dogs redeeming loss. Christmas and dogs. What a gift. As contributor Lisa Began-Kruzman says in her story, "The gift of dog is that they remind us there is no time like the present, and no present like time." I trust you'll enjoy these stories as much as I have enjoyed them. Reading them has been another unexpected tool, a gift, really, to get me through the stress of the times. Thank you for that, dear contributors. Have a blessed Christmas, all. Callie Smith Grant. 1. Bailey's House by Melody Carlson. Bailey the dog had been our baby for more than 6 years when a granddaughter came into our lives. And although this oversized lab was the sweetest dog imaginable, I think his nose was just slightly out of joint for being displaced by a real baby. He didn't know what to make of this noisy little bundle who seemed to be getting all the attention, especially when Christmas time arrived. Our Bailey was solidly built with a shiny chocolate-colored coat and a happy smile. Adored by family and friends for his gentle disposition, he was the kind of dog who liked everyone. Bailey was useless as a watchdog, and we always joked that if a burglar intruded, our dog would just wag his tail and lead him to the silver. Like any beloved child, Bailey had his own Christmas stocking. Nothing fancy, but always filled with some special treats for Christmas. Usually something to chew on and a plush doggy toy. Although most of the doggy toys seemed to go missing, eventually. But this particular year, we had our new grandbaby in the house. Not only was baby Anika stealing some of the attention away from Bailey, but Bailey had probably been spending a bit more time in the laundry room than usual, too. Not that he was neglected exactly, but he just wasn't the center of attention like he was used to being. My mother had knitted Anika a beautiful Christmas stocking that I'd hung on the mantel with the other hand-knit stockings. But a couple days before Christmas, that new stocking went missing. The rest were still in place, but Anika's was mysteriously gone. That's when I remembered how I'd spotted one of Anika's favorite baby toys out in Bailey's dog run a few days earlier. The plush yellow duckling, it sang Singin' in the Rain, had been lying beak down in the snow. I rescued the kidnapped duck to find it was in good shape and still able to sing. Curious about the missing stocking, I looked out the kitchen window, and there on the freshly fallen snow was the red and green sock. Relieved to find it was in perfect condition, I gave Bailey a good-natured scolding, then returned it to its hook with the others. That's when I noticed Bailey's stocking hadn't even been hung yet. Was he trying to give me a hint? So before long, Bailey's Christmas stocking was hanging too, and we all had a good laugh over it. Christmas came and went. The following weekend, I joined my mother and sister for a little getaway, and that evening my sister asked if I'd liked my Christmas present from her. Caught off guard, I tried to remember her gift, but came up blank. She described the packaging, she's known for beautiful wrapping, and she informed me that it contained a very special handmade bracelet. And there was something in there for Bailey, too, she said with concern. Suddenly I remembered how Bailey had snitched Anika's duck and Christmas stocking, and I wondered if he'd taken anything else. It seemed out of character since he'd never been that kind of dog before, but having a baby around had been an adjustment for him. I called home and explained the mystery to my husband. He promised to do some investigating and called me back a few minutes later. Now I must pause to explain that Bailey's kennel wasn't just an ordinary kennel. It started with a doggy door that led from the laundry room to a pretty nice doghouse with 2 rooms. And that led out into a large fenced dog run where he could freely come and go. Pretty posh for a dog. I found the wrapping paper and ribbon and box outside, my husband told me, so I could tell Bailey was responsible. But he explained that the items that were supposed to be inside the box were missing. I crawled into Bailey's doghouse with my flashlight. I found the bracelet and a leather dog collar with beadwork that says, "Good dog." Of course, we had a good laugh over that one. The good dog who'd stolen a present from beneath the Christmas tree. My husband reassured me that both items were in excellent condition. He didn't chew them or anything. But what surprised me even more was that he'd decorated his doghouse. Decorated his doghouse? I wondered if I'd heard him right. Yeah. You know the boxes of Christmas decorations that you'd left in the laundry room? The ones that just had leftover decorations? I asked. It looks like Bailey helped himself to some of those decorations, and he's put them in his doghouse. You're kidding! He laughed. No, I'm serious. Bailey decorated his doghouse. It took a few seconds for this to even register. So Bailey found his Christmas present under the tree, opened it, then took it into his doghouse that he'd already decorated? And that's not all, my husband said. There's more? Yeah. Bailey's got a collection, too. A collection? Now my husband laughingly described how Bailey had all his plush doggy toys, the toys that he'd gotten for previous Christmases and the stuffed toys that had gone missing, all lined up in a neat little row. "They're all clean and in great condition," he said with wonder, almost as if Bailey and the toys were having a Christmas party together. After that, we always made sure Bailey had a new toy for Christmas each year. When Bailey died about 5 years later, my husband went out to clean Bailey's doghouse. But he couldn't do it, because there, lined neatly along one wall inside the doghouse, sat all of Bailey's stuffed toys: a duck, a moose, a bear, and a couple of others, almost like gifts beneath a Christmas tree. We decided to leave the doggy toys alone. Maybe it was a memorial of sorts. We were certain we'd never get another dog. The heartbreak was too much. But then a 2-year-old yellow lab named Audrey entered our lives. When she found Bailey's lineup of toys, she selected only one, the duck, to bring into the house. Then shortly before Christmas, she took the duck back out to the doghouse. And when I peeked out there, just like Bailey, she kept her toys all together like presents piled under the Christmas tree. It just makes you wonder. 2. Birds of a Different Feather by Catherine Deidre Smith. When I was a young woman, I became engaged to a special man. I'm not quite sure what he ever saw in me, but we were in love. He wanted to spend the Christmas immediately following our engagement with his extended family, whom I had never met. To say that I was nervous would be quite an understatement. I was painfully shy and felt terribly awkward. My fiancé's family wanted to know everything about me, where I came from, how Brian and I were meant for each other, and what we all had in common. I didn't know how to answer them. When I thought about it, I really wasn't certain what I had in common with the family. They were seriously into aviation. Brian and his father flew planes and even owned several. I was terrified of flying, especially in small planes. His sister was a debutante. I was a simple country girl and a tomboy. His mom was the quintessential homemaker and cook, while I could barely heat a can of soup. The thought of spending Christmas in a part of Texas where the winters can be bone-chillingly cold, knowing no one else, where I didn't seem to have anything in common with these people other than their son, well, I was kind of terrified. I had a dog at the time, a big, beautiful black Labrador retriever I had saved when he was about 6 months old. I had found him alone in a park early one Sunday morning, skinny, trembling, and extremely fearful. He cowered away with his head to his chest and his tail tightly between his legs every time I spoke to him. When I tried to get close to him, he ran away. I spent the better part of the day trying to encourage him to come out. That evening, I borrowed someone's friendly dog and went back to the park where I'd found the homeless dog. He was still there, still terribly fearful. It seemed obvious that he had been beaten. Eventually, with the help of the friendly dog, I was able to get the lab to approach me. I brought food, and the poor dog practically inhaled it, he was so hungry. When I turned to leave, he started following me. I didn't know if he had been dumped, but it was evident that he hadn't received any love or care. He followed me for about a mile to my studio apartment. Once home, I invited him inside. He was such a scrawny, scrappy boy at that awkward late adolescent stage, no longer an adorable puppy. Living in a college community, I had discovered it was not unusual for pets, even purebreds, to be abandoned toward the end of the semester. Still, I gave the benefit of the doubt and posted lost and found flyers and ran an ad in our local newspaper in case he belonged to someone. No one ever claimed him. So he became my family. He was the first dog I had ever rescued or owned. After having him for a number of weeks, I had tried calling him many names, but he just ignored them. One day, out of frustration from trying out so many other cool names, I blurted out, "Well, you're just a maximum dog, aren't you?" With that, he turned around and sat squarely at my feet. So that's how Max got his name. My fiancé, Brian, insisted that it would be okay to take Max to his parents' house, even though they didn't have a dog and didn't have any experience with the large dog. Max had grown up and filled out by then. No longer awkward or fearful, he was a loyal, confident, and trusted companion. I didn't want to impose, but secretly I thought it would be nice to have at least one more familiar face nearby, so I wouldn't have to lean on my fiancé exclusively for support. We loaded up the car and drove 5.5 hours to Brian's family's home. Everyone was there. His parents, siblings, even his grandparents from Arizona. They were all super social, chatty, and full of questions. I didn't know what I had gotten myself into. Thankfully, we had a practical reason to step away and go outside periodically to take breaks. One of the benefits of having a large dog. They need fresh air and the opportunity to stretch their legs. And so do I. Early Christmas morning, Brian's brother and sister wanted to join us on our early morning walk with Max. It was nice to get away from the house and explore the neighborhood. I had taught Max to walk off-lead, and he was very good at maintaining a close natural heel. About 30 minutes into our walk, Max trotted away from me, which wasn't unusual when he needed to do his business. But this time, he went inside a stranger's open garage. That was highly unusual for Max. I called out to him, but he didn't come back right away. I called to him again, and this time he came, but with something completely filling his mouth. It was a mockingbird, and it was stuck in a glue trap. As soon as Brian and his siblings saw 2 tiny feet and the sticky trap, Brian said, "Well, that's one dead bird." I thought, not so fast. Max was holding that bird ever so gently, and had found a way to carry it to me, trap and all, in his ginormous mouth. He brought this helpless, tiny creature who was completely stuck, and quietly handed me his rescue, while gazing directly into my eyes as if to say, "You fix it, Mom." Though he was a little moist from being in the mouth of a Labrador, the mockingbird wasn't bleeding, and didn't have any breaks, punctures, or damage to his body. The problem was that the bird's tiny legs were completely stuck in the glue trap, and I needed to figure out a way to safely remove them. We headed back to Brian's parents' house, now full of commotion over the bird Max had rescued. Thankfully, his parents led me to an enclosed area where I could work on the stuck bird. Suddenly, everyone was on board, trying to figure out a way to help me get the glue off the fragile legs and feet without harming the bird. We used a mild dish soap and hand creams, but with only partial success. Then I thought about using vinegar. Someone found a convenience store that was open on Christmas Day and bought a small container of vinegar. I used soft cloths moistened in vinegar and placed that over the gooey, sticky adhesive. Finally, it started to loosen. I went through so many soft cloths and dabs of vinegar in this intricate and painstaking process. Max lay at my feet the entire time, gently nudging and reassuring me throughout. Eventually, I was able to get all the glue off the mockingbird's legs, as well as each individual toe and teeny nail. After all the icky glue was removed, I rinsed his legs off with warm water and patted them dry. By this time, no one could believe the bird had lived through this entire ordeal, and the awkwardness with everyone began to melt away, just like the glue from the sticky trap. Once all the glue had been successfully removed, the bird suddenly became energized and feisty, and the entire family wanted to be part of his release. So on that most memorable Christmas day, we went out together, led by a big, beautiful black dog, and released the bird he'd rescued. And the bird flew, high up and far away, and we all waved as that mockingbird soared. Thanks to a rescue dog named Max, we became a family that year and celebrated a Christmas miracle together. 3. Bulldog Christmas by Devana R. Allison. A light snow lay around our little home in the woods on the week before Christmas. It was a Friday evening, and approaching headlights told us someone was winding their way up our driveway. Wrapped against the cold, I stepped out onto the porch, where the smell of wood smoke hung in the air. My husband Earl's boots squeaked in the snow as he joined me on the porch. We recognized our daughter's car. The car door opened, and before we could greet one another, the unmistakable form of a bulldog bounded out into the snow. The dog wriggled and danced in greeting as we stared, open-mouthed. Our daughter explained, breathless, "I found her wandering in a parking lot in town, trying to climb into people's cars. There's something wrong with her, but she's so sweet." The frown on Earl's face said just how unwelcome our canine visitor was. Earl wasn't looking for a dog. Our 10-year-old American Pit Bull Terrier, Ebony Rose, had died in the spring of that year. 9 months later, the loss was still fresh for my husband. Ebony had been his faithful shadow, and although our grown children and I had urged Earl to adopt another dog, my husband was firm. "We don't need another dog, especially a sick one," he now said. "Can't you just take her in for the night?" our daughter pled. "I don't want her going to the pound, especially at Christmas." Whether it was mention of our local animal control or the season, I'm not sure. But Earl said, "Well, just for the one night, and not in the house." The bulldog trotted behind us toward the garage. There, in the light, we could see the full extent of her sorry condition. Her short white coat was falling away in patches. Her skin was crusted, inflamed, and oozing. Her eyes ran, and she held her head in such a funny way I wondered if she could hear us clearly. Moreover, the dog was crawling with fleas. Her miserable condition was in stark contrast to her happy attitude. She seemed overjoyed to be with us. Earl made up a soft bed for the dog, and we shut her in for the night. Checking in on her later, Earl said he found her curled up on her makeshift bedding, emitting loud snores. The next morning, Earl was up early. "I'll bet that dog has made a mess of my garage," he grumbled, pulling on his boots and coat. I wrapped my fingers around my cup of hot coffee and watched through the kitchen window. The dog greeted Earl at the door of the garage, her face spread in a wide bully grin. As it turned out, she'd had no accidents in the garage, and even took her business to the far corner of the yard. My husband was impressed. After sniffing around in her new environment, the dog trotted up to Earl and went down on her front legs, an obvious attempt to play. It didn't take much convincing on her part. Soon she and Earl were running and playing in the snow together. My husband came in, his cheeks bright red from the cold and exertion, and asked, "How soon can you be ready to go to town?" "To town?" I was still in my robe. "We've got to get that dog to the vet," Earl said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I drove the 8 miles to town with my husband beside me, cradling the bulldog's raw, scaly head. He spoke to her soothingly while Christmas carols played over the radio. "So, what should we call her?" I asked. "We're not naming her because we're not keeping her," Earl insisted. A smile crept into the corners of my mouth unbidden, and I said no more. The waiting room of our vet's office was decorated with tinseled garlands, twinkle lights, and greeting cards. We were the only ones in the room and didn't have to wait long. Under the bright lights of the exam room, the doctor confirmed the dog appeared to be an English bulldog, probably crossed with another bully breed. He guessed her age to be about 1.5 years. He scrutinized the dog's ears and eyes, took her temperature, and checked her teeth. The vet took a skin scraping and disappeared into his lab to look at the sample under a microscope. The news was not great. The dog was covered in demodectic mange. It would require lengthy and expensive treatments to cure her. She also had a severe double ear infection in addition to the flea infestation. In short, she was a mess. My hopes for keeping the dog plummeted with the news of her condition. Our veterinarian laid out clearly what treatments she would require, and then asked, "What do you call her?" I opened my mouth to explain we weren't keeping the dog, but Earl spoke first. "Her name is Molly," he said, and we smiled at each other. On the way home, we stopped at the local farm store where Earl bought bowls, food, and toys for Molly, plus a thick, cushiony bed. Over the next few months, Molly received chemical dips to treat the mange, along with antibiotics, steroids, and flea treatments. She made a complete recovery, and her coat filled in clean and white, with a brindle spot above one eye. With her distinctive bulldog grin, she is quite a sight. She is Earl's constant companion, but best of all, she's a healthy, happy dog. And of course, she lives in the house now. 1 year after we gave Molly a home, Earl took her to have her picture taken with Santa Claus. We display the picture on our mantel every year at Christmas time. It never fails to put a smile on our faces, because it reminds us of our first bulldog Christmas. 4. Fafnir's Christmas Gift by Amy Shojai. Newlyweds always face challenges learning what to expect from each other. My husband, Mahmoud, came from a country, culture, and family very different from the close-knit, pet-loving household I'd experienced. But we had faith our love was enough to build a life together. 5 months into our marriage, our world blew up. We struggled to understand the taking of hostages half a world away, and we worried about Mahmoud's relatives caught in the insanity of that awful nightmare. The conflict threatened our relationship as well. We were so very different. The stress became unbearable. Sometimes we hurt each other expecting too much. We'd misunderstand a word, a glance, a gesture that had different meanings for each of us. Would our love survive? So when Mahmoud suggested a puppy for my birthday, the gift meant everything. In his homeland, dogs were considered dirty, dangerous creatures, suitable only for outdoor guard duty. Inviting a dog into our home meant Mahmoud understood me, that he wanted me to be happy, and that he knew what would help me most during the most frightening and challenging time of our lives. Our new German Shepherd puppy kept me company when Mahmoud worked nights. We named him Fafnir, after a character in a German opera. Fafnir listened when I worried out loud, clowned to make me laugh, howled when I sang Christmas songs, and licked away my tears. And there were many tears. I missed my distant Indiana family. I felt out of place in the small eastern Kentucky town. I struggled to be a perfect wife, and of course failed miserably. But Fafnir made me feel important. He didn't care if meals never tasted like Mom used to make. He never called me a Yankee. And we seemed to have a common language that needed no words. He thought I was wonderful. And I knew he was special, too. Then Mahmoud was laid off. So that August we moved to Louisville, where he attended graduate school. Less than a week after the move, I found a position as a veterinary assistant. As a special bonus, I could take Fafnir with me to work. Our neighbor's small cockapoo, Fidget, became best buddies with Fafnir. Things were looking up. Then Fafnir developed a limp. He favored first one paw and then another. Medicine temporarily relieved his limping.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?